It's wild to look back and realize how much we've learned on this personal finance journey. When I first picked up I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, I couldn't even tell you the difference between a Roth and traditional account. Now, years later, I understand strategies like Roth conversion ladders, which is just bananas to me. Education is empowering. I'm always on the lookout for new things to learn and smarter ways to manage money. But sometimes things sound smart and turn out not to be. Here's a personal example. When I started working full-time, I knew I needed to start investing. A friend recommended his guy who handled everything for him. It sounded like a smart move. This guy managed money for hundreds of families. He must know more than I did, so I signed on. What did he do? He opened up a whole life insurance policy for me to, quote, build tax-free wealth. At the time, it sounded smart. Who doesn't want tax-free wealth? I wasn't investing outside of my 401k match, so something felt better than nothing. But after reading I Will Teach You to Be Rich and continuing to learn on my own, I realized there was simpler and more effective ways to grow my money. I've heard so many stories like this from friends in the FI community, and it inspired me to create a special series. This is 6 money moves that sound smart, but aren't. I reached out to 6 personal finance creators, and each one of them recorded a segment about a money move they made that sounded smart, but didn't turn out that way. You'll hear from them first, and then I'll jump in with some thoughts afterwards. This is part 1 of a 2-part series, so be sure to download part 2 whenever you're done here. Today, you're going to hear from Diana Merriam, Jesse Cramer, and Joel Larsgaard, powerhouses in the personal finance space, and we're going to cover topics like Roth conversions and 529 plans. But first, you'll hear from Diana Merriam, creator of EconoMe, discuss credit card churning.
Hi, this is Diana Merriam, founder of the EconoMe Conference, which is a party about money designed for the FIRE movement. So one of my smart money moves that didn't work out so well for me has to do with travel hacking and churning credit cards for points. What I think I did right in my experience was I didn't manufacture spending in order to get points. So this is all money that I would have spent anyway. And I did have a spreadsheet of all the cards that I opened with relevant information when would the yearly annual fee kick in so that I could cancel the card before that date in theory, and keeping track of where all my points were and that kind of thing. So what I would do is, especially as a business owner, with this conference, I have tens of thousands of dollars of expenses that all hit at one time. So I would open 4 or 5 cards around that time to get the signing bonuses because I was sure to hit those minimum spending thresholds. And so then I can rack up all these points. And it did work well for a while. I think at my peak, I got maybe $6,000 of free travel one year just through doing this. So that's great. It certainly had its benefits, but it got a little overcomplicated. So I was opening cards in my name, in my husband's name. I was opening personal cards. I was opening business cards. I mean, I think at one point I had 25 different cards open. And in theory, my plan was sound in that I wasn't overspending and manufacturing spending. I was keeping track of the information, but the reality was it got way overcomplicated and way messy, and details started falling through the cracks. I wasn't canceling cards before the yearly annual fee would chime in. At one point, I forgot to set up automatic payments and I got charged a late fee and I got charged interest one month because these details kind of slipped through the cracks. And I was just very inconsistent about revisiting my spreadsheet and really staying on top of it. And aside from that, I was using a website called Doctor of Credit to help me pick the cards that I was going to sign up for each year. And I was just choosing cards based on what was the highest signing bonus, but they weren't necessarily aligned with how I might eventually use the points. So there have been times where I kept this card open because I have points with them. So I don't want to close the card, but I don't really have a way to use those points in any reasonable time frame. The other thing that would happen is I would have so many cards that I needed to monitor for fraud. And I would have a card that was kind of open because I had points and I wouldn't be monitoring transactions on it regularly. And then like a fraud transaction would pop up and I would miss it. So that kept happening. I'm trying to think of like why else this didn't work. It just got way overcomplicated and I was spending a lot of time. I was missing details. It was stressing me out, and all for like $6,000 in travel for 1 year. Like it just seemed like, looking back on it, I'd rather just spend the money versus driving myself crazy with keeping track of all of these different cards. So I think maybe for someone that could be more consistent on being on top of like the organization of that and maybe being more thoughtful about what cards they're picking, maybe this would work out better. But for me, I decided that I would rather just spend my own money on travel than dealing with travel hacking.
Oh my gosh, Diana just summed up my feelings about travel hacking in one story. On one hand, $6,000 of free travel sounds amazing. That could mean a few free flights for my girlfriend and me. But on the other hand, the effort it takes to get there just doesn't appeal to me. When Diana started listing all the maintenance tasks like canceling credit cards, updating automatic payments, monitoring for fraud, I realized how much time and energy that level of travel hacking really takes. I'm someone who favors simplicity when it comes to money, and I'm convinced there is a Goldilocks zone when it comes to credit card rewards. I think having 2 to 4 cards that match your spending habits and preferred travel brands is a sweet spot. Sure, you might not score $6,000 in free travel, but what about $3,000 with the airlines or hotels you already use, and it doesn't really take a whole lot of additional effort? Don't get me wrong, if travel hacking brings you joy, probably the way that budgeting does for me, go all in. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're more like Diana and me, ask yourself, how could you maximize your credit card benefits with just 1 hour of effort a year? It's good food for thought. And if you want to check out that awesome FI conference Diana mentioned, take a look at the show notes for a link to the EconoMe conference. Next up is my friend Jesse Cramer. He hosts the popular podcast Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, and he is here to share some thoughts on Roth conversions.
Hey listeners, this is Jesse Cramer speaking. I host a podcast called Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors and write a blog called The Best Interest. It's my honor to discuss a money move today that can be smart, actually, and quite often is smart, but it seems like every week I see someone doing it in a pretty dumb way or for dumb reasons. And this money move, it is Roth conversions. Now, if you're an experienced member of the FI movement, Roth conversions might be old hat to you, but just in case they're not, here's a quick explanation. Roth conversions allow us to take dollars in our traditional retirement accounts and quote unquote convert them to dollars in our Roth retirement accounts. So the starting point can be a traditional IRA, a rollover IRA, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, and then the end destination is a Roth IRA. Now, there's a price to pay for doing this. Those traditional retirement dollars have never been subject to income tax. They went in pre-tax and they've grown tax-free. So in order to convert them to Roth dollars, you must pay income tax on the conversion dollars. The conversion is a taxable event. You intentionally choose to realize income tax in the year of the conversion. So why do we do Roth conversions then if we're intentionally realizing taxes? Well, from a pure objective numbers point of view, Roth conversions are all about this idea called tax arbitrage. It's a fancy way of saying I'll intentionally pay a little tax today in order to avoid a lot of tax later on. Done correctly, Roth conversions allow us to intentionally realize taxes during our lowest income or at least lower income years, perhaps those years in early retirement, right, when we have no other income. And in those years, we can probably get away with paying 12% or 10% or even 0% federal taxes. We get to move dollars into our Roth accounts for cheap. But still, why? I mean, we haven't quite gotten to the heart of the question yet. Why convert Roth dollars? Why are we afraid of paying higher taxes later on in life? Well, the reason why is that as we age, many of us will start to collect a few different forms of mandatory income. The first, Social Security. Granted, not all Social Security income is taxable, but for many retirees, some or most even of their Social Security is actually taxable. Then some retirees will collect pension income. Many retirees will have interest and dividend payments coming in from their taxable accounts. Some people might be working part-time. And last, perhaps most important, if you've been a diligent saver in your 401k or in traditional IRA accounts, you will face something called required minimum distributions, or RMDs. RMDs are the federal government and the IRS's way of saying, hey, you've never really paid taxes on this traditional investment account, and we are going to start collecting eventually. We are going to force you. So for current and new retirees, their RMD age is usually 73 or 75, and starting at that age, they will be forced to distribute a fraction of their accounts annually. And with that distribution comes a tax, income tax. So when you add up that income, those various income types that I just described, it's not uncommon to see a 75-year-old couple collecting $200,000 a year in retirement income, most of which they have no choice in the matter. And that means that their marginal dollars of income are being taxed at 22 or 24%. If the couple has even larger RMDs, their marginal dollars might be getting taxed at 32 or 35%. Now, I would much rather pay 0 or 10 or 12% via a smartly timed Roth conversion, put that money away into a Roth account where it's never taxed again. I would rather do that in my early retirement years instead of waiting for RMDs to come around to pay 24 or 32 or 35% during my RMD years. So when you throw this all into a spreadsheet, comparing those tax rates, that's all we need to do to determine if Roth conversions make mathematical sense. Can I pay a lower tax today than I otherwise would pay if I waited for RMDs to come around? Now, some of you might run the math for yourselves. You might realize that your current and future tax rates are roughly even. You could pay 22% on a Roth conversion right now, but if you don't, then you'll be paying 22%, that same 22% on your RMDs later in life. So in that way, there's no tax arbitrage. It's just a wash. It's the same tax rate either way. There's no big gain in that case for Roth conversions, but still, if it makes you feel better in that case just to get those dollars into your Roth bucket, where you'll never have to pay taxes on those dollars again, I get it. I think that's a fine use of Roth conversions. It might not actually save you money, but it's getting money into your Roth bucket, and you end up paying the same tax either way. Okay, I get that. But then there are plenty of people I see who simply make Roth conversion mistakes. The problem, as far as I can tell, is that they hear too many voices in the world of social media or online content, and those voices are saying, Roth is the best. Always max out your Roth IRA. Roth conversions are a huge hack. It's Roth, 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 Roth. People simply saying that Roth is just undeniably better than traditional accounts. And people get swept up in this Roth hype, and they plow forward with Roth conversions without actually asking themselves if it's a smart tax move. And now, why might it not be a smart tax move? So let's talk about a hypothetical FI hopeful listener here on FI Minded. Let's say they're 35 years old. They've been following the diligent advice of FI experts for a few years. Their savings rate is great. They invest wisely. And by their math, they'll reach FI in about 10 years at age 45. So 10 years until retirement. But like many FI hopeful people with high savings rates, a big input to their FI dreams is their high income. This couple, let's say she's an engineer at Apple, he's in sales in the medical industry. Combined, their income is currently $500,000 per year. The problem, or at least as far as they've identified it though, is that they don't have enough Roth dollars. They max out their pre-tax 401k every year. They put a lot of extra money into a joint taxable account too. But their Roth buckets are small. They can only put in $7,000 a year into their Roth accounts. It's by far the smallest bucket, and that fact worries them. They've been listening to smart people telling them to try to diversify their tax buckets between traditional and Roth and taxable. So they decide to take some tax action. He has a rollover IRA from some old employer. It has $50,000 in it, just a standalone IRA account, and they decide to convert that to Roth. Now the problem is, based on their income, they're in the 35% federal tax bracket, so that $50,000 conversion counts as extra income this year, and it will all get taxed at 35% federally, and depending on what state they're in, it might get taxed highly at the state level too. Now, instead, what I think they should have done, and simply what the math says they should have done, what a cohesive financial plan would point them to, is make them realize that they should have waited on the Roth conversion. They should just wait until they're 45 years old and early retired. And during that first year of early retirement, there's a really high likelihood that their only income will be coming from dividends and interest in their taxable account. Even for high net worth families like this one, those dividends and income are often enveloped by the standard deduction, meaning they would owe no tax And once the standard deduction is all used up, well, they can still convert $22,000 to Roth at a 10% tax rate, then $70,000 more at 12%, then $100,000 more at 22%, then $170,000 more at 24%. And that's every single year. The point is, I would never intentionally tax myself at 35%, knowing that I could accomplish the same exact long-term goal later on by taxing myself at 12 or 10% or even 0%. One of my colleagues here at work has this great line where he says, we all owe taxes. We can't simply get away with not paying taxes, but we also have a right to not pay any more taxes than we're obligated to. When people get too excited by this Roth hype, and they execute some ill-conceived, ill-timed Roth conversion, they are stumbling right into the trap of paying more taxes than they're obligated to. That's a money move that might feel smart, but simply isn't.
Jesse Cramer coming in hot, as always, with solid financial planning advice. Here's the thing. If you're on track for early retirement, you'll likely have plenty of time to do Roth conversions. In most cases, it doesn't make sense to do them while you're still working and in a higher tax bracket. Instead, it's often smarter to wait until after you've retired, or even semi-retired. I love how Jesse broke down that example of a family converting nearly $100,000 in the first year of their early retirement at just 0 to 12% tax rate. Like, that is possible every single year for you in your post-fi lifestyle, and that is really the power of tax arbitrage. So yes, Roth conversions can be a great strategy, but just don't jump the gun. Timing really matters for the strategy. And if you're thinking, what if I hit my FIRE number, but still love my work and keep earning a high income? Maybe you're going to continue to grow your income and you're in the 24% tax bracket now, and then you end up being in the 32% tax bracket or something crazy like that. Well, that's okay because you honestly won the game of money at that point in time. You could retire now, but you're choosing to keep going. And that's a great position to be in. So sure, you might miss a few tax optimization windows like converting when you're in the 24% tax bracket, but that's not something worth losing sleep over. Go enjoy your life and the wealth that you built along the way. Once again, that's Jesse Cramer, host of Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, a great show, definitely worth checking out. Today's last money move breakdown is from Joel Larsgaard, co-host of the incredible podcast How to Money, and he's here to talk about 529 plans.
Hey, FI-minded folks, this is Joel from How to Money. I wanted to talk about 529 plans for just a quick second. Saving for the next generation, helping them to avoid college debt. Sounds brilliant, right? Sounds like a no-brainer. Plus, many 529 plans offer a state tax break for the parent making the contributions. So you're like, cool, saving for my kids, getting a tax break for myself. It's a double whammy. And then on top of that, right, 529 plans have become even more flexible in recent years. Basically, if you save too much, you can convert those $529 into Roth IRA money for your kid over time. And it's like, what's not to love about the 529 plan? It's pretty great. And yes, it has, like I just admitted, gotten better. And it feels like I'm painting an incredibly rosy picture of this savings device. But I actually think that saving in a 529 plan is one of those money moves that seems smart on the surface, but it often isn't. And that's because it feels like the altruistic and the sacrificial thing to do for the next generation, but it could be what I call a boneheaded mistake that leads to needless financial suffering for you and for your child down the road. And you're like probably scratching your head after all the good things I said about that. Well, why? And it's because the main reason is that saving for the next generation should be further down the list of financial priorities for you in all likelihood, right? Like saving for your own retirement. It's significantly more crucial. And it's not even close. 529 plans and then like, let's say your Roth IRA or your 401k at work. Those are far more important. I liken it to when you hear the pre-flight announcements as you're getting settled into your seat, right? The flight attendant, they inform you that you should put on your own oxygen mask before you start helping folks around you put theirs on. And it is well recognized, right? That you're not doing that out of selfish motives. Like, let me save myself before you start thinking of others. That's not the reason you put on your own oxygen mask first. You're doing it out of a recognition that if you're not able to breathe properly, you're not going to be much help to anybody else. And the same is true of saving for your child's college. It's this admirable goal, but don't start saving for their future before you've successfully been setting aside money for your own. I don't even want to think about socking money into a 529 plan. And I don't want you to think about socking money into a 529 plan before you're investing at least 15% of your income, and have been doing so for quite a while. And there's a couple reasons for this. I mean, there are so many ways to pay for college. It's not even funny, right? You can pursue getting scholarships, apply for financial aid through the school of your choice. Your high school student can opt to take more AP classes, right? And that can allow them to score more college credit, meaning they don't even have to take some of those courses potentially in order to get the degree they want. You can even get creative about the school you choose to attend. Say, hey, maybe I'm not going to go to the first choice school because second choice school is going to give me a lot more money to go there. Plus, there's always a chance that your child will opt for a route that doesn't involve a 4-year degree. Maybe they're getting entrepreneurial with it from the get-go and they're saying, I don't feel like I need college. But retirement, on the other hand, it's essentially on your shoulders. Like it's a one-way path. The stakes are higher too, and so it means you need those decades really to be socking away money in your own retirement accounts. Suppose you don't save intentionally for those post-work decades. Well, in that case, you might find that your efforts to reduce the financial strain of college costs for your children have actually created other financial harms that could impact your relationship because you're not well set up to fund your own retirement. That can cause a lot of frustration, a lot of difficulty. And so while a debt-free degree is a stupendous achievement, it's cool, and I think it's a goal worth aiming for, it can be had without a dime in your 529 account. And the best legacy you can leave for your children, it's not a college experience with zero student loans. It's less, I think, about giving them money and making sure that they don't have any sort of college debt to their name when they graduate. And it's far more about what you teach them about money. That is what's going to have a lasting impact. I also know that parental guilt is real. I think this is a large reason why people opt to invest in a 529 plan before they've done enough for their own financial future. But not saving for your child's future education, it doesn't mean that you don't love them. And that's not the message they get. That's just something you've told yourself, and it's not true. If there's money left over after you've fully funded your own retirement needs, and you still feel the strong desire to save for those future college costs, then go for it. I'm not saying that a 529 plan should never be considered, just that it is often considered far too soon. But I also want you to feel the emotional freedom to give 529 plans the old Heisman, right? So you can set yourself up for financial success. Just don't be the person who thinks they're doing the brilliant money move by shoving money into college savings.
There was a time when 529 plans got some criticism, but since the tax law changes that allowed overfunded dollars to be rolled into a child's Roth IRAs, that pressure has eased up. Still, I think Joel's argument is worth serious consideration. Sure, many of you in the FI community won't risk their long-term financial security by funding their kids' 529s. A lot of us have high savings rates and are already doing plenty to take care of our future selves and our kids' education. But Joel's point is this: take care of yourself first. And honestly, sometimes that means being a little selfish. If you're stuck at a dead-end job, or you're feeling burnt out, or you simply want more control over your time, then prioritizing your own financial independence might be the best move for you right now, especially if your kids are still 10 or 15 years away from college. I think about my own parents here. They've built up a strong retirement fund, probably more than they'll need to comfortably live. Their plan is to pass along some of that to me and my siblings. But to be honest, I'd rather see them spend it now. Like, go enjoy life, check things off their bucket list, make memories with us while they can. They've already done their part. They taught me how to live below my means, use credit wisely, be thrifty, save for the future. As the saying goes, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And they taught me how to fish. So maybe it's time to take a step back from 529s and make sure your own financial independence is at the top of your list. I'm sure your kids will appreciate it in the long run, especially if they get to spend more time with you during some of their critical years, like their teenage years. Huge shout out to Diana, Jesse, and Joel. Those are 3 great ideas on maybe not so smart money moves. Go check out part 2 where my friends Larry, Sean Mullaney, and Jeremy Schneider share their ideas too. But before you go, I want to hear from you too. What is a money move that seems smart on the surface, but once you got into it, it wasn't? Send me an email at justin@fiminded.com. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.